Hey, party people, listen. Contrary to popular belief, what we call the dietary laws have not been done away with. They were not. See, the problem with most Christians is they think that God gave us gave the Israelite things to eat just for religious reasons. There was no religion back then. You have to understand one thing. Israel is a family. They're not called Jews. They're not called Jewish. The letter J wasn't even created yet. They were called Israel. Israel is the name of a man named Jacob, who was the grandson of Abraham, who the Most High decided to start building a nation off of him. So he changed his name to Israel. Okay. So he gave them, he said, listen, if you eat, he gave them the food to eat. And one of the important things was that they chewed the cud and had, like, I just wanted to explain what chewing the cud means, because if you understand that, then you can understand why he told them what foods to eat. Chew the cud means it's a certain way that the food is digested in the animal. It's digested, then they throw it up, and they re-eat it, and it's double digested. Certain animals eat that way because these animals, they get more nutrients in their body, so when you eat them, you get more nutrients. Now, the ones who don't do this, so whatever they eat is in the body, so they're poisonous. So he was telling them, he's the creator. He created your body. He created these animals. He created these particular animals, what he called clean, because you can eat them. The ones that are not clean, they were not created for human consumption. They were not created for you to eat. So he didn't all of a sudden say, you can now eat this poison. Because if it's not made for you to eat, then it's poisonous. So he wouldn't tell you that now you can eat poison. It just doesn't make any kind of sense. Now, the scripture that Christians always like to go to prove that Jesus said you can eat anything is the verse where Jesus said it's not what goes into the man's stomach that defiles him, it's what's in his heart. Now, let me explain. That passage, you cannot take passages out of context to make it say whatever it is you want it to say. Okay? Remember that part. Because that chapter is about the disciples eating without washing their hands. That's what it's about. It's not about the type of food they were eating, because they were Israelites. They know what to eat, what was considered food and what was not considered food. They weren't questioning that. What happened was the Pharisees, who was always watching Yeshua to see if he's doing something right and wrong so they can call him out, noticed that his disciples were eating and they hadn't washed their hands. Now, this is not a law created by God. This is a man-made tradition that you got to wash your hands before you eat. It's not one of the thou shalt not eat food without washing your hands. So they was like, oh my gosh, you letting them eat food without washing their hands? That's against the law. You can't do that. And Yeshua says it's not what goes into the man's stomach that comes out that defiles the man. It's what goes into his heart. So he was talking about dirt on their hands, possibly going into their mouth. He wasn't talking about the food they were eating, because, see, the thing is, food, Israel didn't have any question about what was considered food. They know what was considered food. It's the people who are trying to want to eat anything that are saying this is not food. And see, this is why there's so many Christians with cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, on all sorts of medication, because they eat whatever they feel like eating. They say, oh, it's all clean. It's not all clean. It's not a religious thing. It was not something just for Israel, or some people say just for Jews. It was nothing like that. It's a law, because the Creator is saying, this is the food that I created for human consumption, and this is the food that is not created for human consumption. That's it. It's nothing like, oh, I'm just telling you not to eat this because it's a religious thing, and I want people to say, oh, you must be Israelites if you don't eat that. No. No. Same thing, Muslims don't eat certain food either, because they know it's unhealthy for you. It's unhealthy. It's food that's not created for you to eat. And that is why there are more Christians dying of cancer and diabetes and heart, because they're the only fools who sit there and say, oh, it's done away with. I can eat whatever I want to eat. They're the only fools that say that. Everybody else understand that it has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with health and what's good for you to eat and what's not good for you to eat. And eating stuff that the Creator says, I did not create this for human consumption, is absolutely foolish for you to walk around and say, I can now consume it. That's it, folks. You cannot consume the food that the Creator says is not food. It's not. It's not created for human consumption. Same thing with the food that they're making now. They're making food in laboratories. It's not made for human consumption. It just isn't. Has absolutely no nutrients in it. The whole purpose of eating is to keep your body right and full of the right nutrients. It's not going to happen if you're eating the food that was not created as food, or you're calling poison food. It's poison. Just think of, whenever you read the word unclean in the Bible, when it's pertaining to meats, think of poison, because that's what it is. It's poison. So there's no done away with. You can eat whatever you want. And don't sit there and talk about the dream Peter had, because the dream Peter had was not saying you can now eat poison. It was because the Gentiles, because the Israelites were not ever going to the home of Gentiles, because of the fact that there's a lot of unclean stuff in their home, particularly food. That's why he had the dream, because it was imperative that he was to go into a Gentile's home and talk to the Gentile. So that's why he had the message to say it's okay for you to go into this Gentile home. It was a message for Peter in a dream. It was not a new doctrine. It was a message for Peter in a dream to give him the permission to go inside the home of a Gentile, which is what he was assigned to do. And that's why he had that dream. So you can't take stuff out of context and just make it into the way you want it to be. That's just craziness. Have a good day.